My name is Ed Murray, and I am running for the mayor of Seattle. I am a state senator from the 43rd District here in Seattle. I was in the House for 11 years, and I have been in the Senate for the last 7 years. During that time, I'm the only person in state history to have chaired all three budget committees: the capital budget, the transportation budget, and the Ways and Means budget. Currently, I am the Senate Democratic leader, and so that's who I am. Why am I running for mayor? Well, I think that Seattle is a great city, having grown up here. We were just talking about Alki, where I started out and went to school. And I even told him something that I'm not sure helps me is I was in the same first grade class with Tim Cease. So literally we were. But speaking for my I'm my own person. Speaking for myself, great things are happening in this city, and great people are making great things happen in this city. But I don't believe that this city as a civic entity is in a great place. I don't think that we're in a place of great civic leadership. I don't think we're at a place where we're coming together with a common vision. And I don't think we're coming together in a place where we know how to move together with the strategy to implement that vision. And that's why I'm running. And my experience in the legislature is I have never, in my time in the legislature, worked on anything but difficult issues. I have never, ever had a bill where I wasn't always looking for that last vote to make it happen. Whether it was passing 2 transportation packages, which were the first transportation packages that had been passed in the state in almost a decade and a half. Packages that brought, after a huge crash before I came on between environmentalists and road advocates, we brought the environmentalists together, we brought the road advocates together, we brought labor together, we brought business together, and we were able to begin at least moving forward in transportation. And I'll talk a little more about that, the details of that. And as you know, I inherited a bill, the Civil Rights Bill, that my predecessor, Cal Anderson, had worked on for 8 years. I worked on for 11 years. The length of that bill took 29 years. Again, it took a coalition of very different people, Republicans and Democrats, activists on the street and business, to make that bill happen. And again, another example of the type of leadership I think I offer and that the city needs. Big problems. Marriage equality. 17 years ago when DOMA was passed, I don't think people would have believed that we could have brought together a coalition and year after year after year passed a series of bills until we finally got to marriage equality. And I mention those things because I think that's the type of leadership Seattle needs. Somebody who is able to reach out and work with people who are different than themselves. And believe me, the Republicans I work with in Olympia could not be more different than myself. To get Republicans to vote for taxes or to get Republicans to vote for civil rights is not an easy thing. And I think that that's what I would like to bring to the city of Seattle. Whether it's transportation, where I don't believe we have strategic vision, whether it's growth, which I don't believe we have a strategic idea about how to manage growth and move forward with growth. And I realize that the city is not the school board, but I don't think that we can ignore other issues like what kind of schools we want in this city. And I think that there's a need for leadership on all of those issues. I think I have 30 seconds left. So I will stop my stump speech and move into the next part. Okay. So I just wanted to be conscious of the. Okay. So I looking over the issues that you sent me as we sat on the Senate floor, and I read through these. It was kind of an interesting thing to be in Olympia and to read about the concerns that you all mentioned in Seattle. And actually, your question around transportation took away a lot of my talking points, because one of the things that amazes me is that we have a $2 billion backlog in just basic major maintenance needs in this city. And that has grown over time and not shrunk. This is a city where people want more transit, and they want every kind of transit. And there's a bunch of different ideas and a bunch of different projects going on. But I believe that we need, first of all, to decide what is our vision on transit. What type of transit are we going to move with first, and how are we going to pay for it? Because we simply cannot pay for all the transit that everybody wants all at the same time. There are things that I would love to do, but we're going to have to make some tough decisions. We're going to have to make some prioritization. I'm happy that the state was the first person to put some money into the streetcar in South Lake Union. But that is not a strategic vision. That was a one-piece thing that hadn't been fully thought out. And it's an example of how do we think these things out? How do we think Metro? How do we think moving Sound Transit forward? I want to give you an example of what we did on transportation to give you an idea of what I would do as mayor on transportation. So we had been stuck on transportation for almost 2 decades. Tim Eyman had passed 695 that had eliminated all the money that went to anything but roads. All the multimodal money was gone, all the bicycle money was gone, all the pedestrian money was gone, the state's role in transit was gone. So we passed the nickel package and we passed the 9.5 cent package. But people always talk about the gas tax. They also forget that we put a surcharge on new and used cars, and that money was put into things like the bike program and the PED program. We restored the bike program. We restored the PED program. We began a new program called Safe Routes to Schools, which was the first strategic piece of building that pedestrian, rebuilding the pedestrian part of the state's program. And I mentioned, why did we do Safe Routes to School first? Well, I remember when I worked for the city council 22 years ago, people in Seattle were talking about we weren't doing enough about sidewalks. And since I've been running for mayor this time, what I hear is that we're not doing enough about sidewalks. And I think if we're going to look at a pedestrian program, we're going to have to prioritize a pedestrian program and decide which sidewalks that we're going to do first, and actually show, and not just say, well, I'm going to do sidewalks or I'm going to do transit, but actually show a way to move forward on an area such as that. Let me look at your questions are long.
No, they're not really questions. They're kind of like issue areas
Okay.
to talk to.
Okay. So moving on to the issue of gentrification, and I think this really, I just want to look at, I kind of want to take the issue of growth and gentrification together because I think that they are related. So this is one of the basic questions that I think we have to answer, and really the very basic question is, who is going to live in the city of Seattle in the next 4 years or in the next 8 years? Currently, we are a city where roughly 75% of the people in the city have no children. 75% of the people in the city are white. 60% of the children in our public school system are children of color. We are one of the wealthiest cities now as far as real estate, and have the first or second number of children in Seattle, school-age children in private schools. And I think the thing that is driving that is the affordability of this city. So I think we're going to have to come up with some pretty unique ways to move forward. And let me give you one of the things I would work on to address that. The University of Washington is having trouble recruiting the best and brightest to come here, because the best and brightest do not want to live in the outer suburbs. They want to live in the city. 90% of our fire staff, 90% live outside the city. And we know we have a cultural issue within the police department, and again, a significant number live outside the city. Places like the University of Washington and other public entities around the country are looking at what the public can do, either in partnership with a nonprofit, or as a public entity, or in conjunction with the private sector, to create workforce housing. that to some level we subsidize some mortgage for those public employees so that they can actually live in this city, so that that cop or that firefighter can live in this city. That's just one idea. I'm not saying that's the idea I would implement, but it's one of the ideas that we need to look at if we are actually going to be able to create affordable housing. Because I think the city or government, in partnership with nonprofits in the private sector and those individuals who want to live in this city, can do something about lead an effort to create that workforce housing that allows our public employees to live in Seattle and not in Snohomish. And I think that gets at two issues. One is gentrification and the other is growth. And I would go on about sort of affordability, but to move on more generally to the issue of growth. So for the next 4 years, the city of Seattle, decisions are going to be made in the city of Seattle about what this city literally looks like. This city will physically look very different 4 years from now than it does today. And I think the challenge that we face is how are we going to manage this? What are we going to do? Are we going to simply build big buildings or create new types of housing without any strategic plan? I've gotten several emails from constituents this week about the how do you pronounce the term? Apodments. But the question that comes to my mind is not should they exist or should they not exist, but have we created a framework to decide if they exist, where should they exist, and how many of them should exist? And some neighborhoods, maybe like the University District, maybe the area around Seattle University, there might be areas where something like that strategically can actually help us with density, can strategically help us concentrate the density there, offer that type of housing, which as many of us created those when we were going to college of a certain generation. They were old houses and 5 or 6 of us moved in and we had a common room. So it's not like this hasn't been done before, but for developers simply to build them without a strategic sense of how the city wants to drive that, I think is an example of what's lacking. And I think that is an example of what's happened over the last 4 years, is that there are good departments doing good things in different silos without any planning and movement forward about how we manage it. I think that we have some opportunity to enhance areas where we can concentrate growth and preserve neighborhoods that, like the one I live in, which is North Capitol Hill, a few blocks away from where the apartments are. I like my single-family home at this point in my life. At some point I may like that one-story condo. And at some point I might get tired of the garden in the yard, but at this point I like that house. And our ability to preserve houses like that, I think, are contingent on our ability to develop and build on the urban villages that were designated back in the 1990s. If we don't come up with a strategic way to concentrate growth and to enhance those areas where we want to concentrate growth with things such as transit, then I think those neighborhoods, those single-family neighborhoods, those traditional neighborhoods in Seattle are at risk of disappearing forever. I also think growth is more than about just sort of some neighborhoods being dense or other neighborhoods becoming dense. I also think growth is about how we create, and you know, and a lot of you have probably read, I'm going to forget his first name now, but Professor Frumkin at the Department of Public Studies at UW, a lot of his work, Healthy Communities, Howard Frumkin.
Right, he's in the health department.
Yeah, the health department, the public, yeah. So, you know, he really outlines that it's not simply even an answer of density, it's an answer of creating healthy communities. It's about the communities that you live in today. Are those walkable communities? Are we working on focusing that you're able to walk to the grocery store, that you're able to walk to the pharmacy, Are there places for you to enjoy walking your dog if you have a dog? Are there places for you to be able to walk to a bus so that you don't have to get in your car, so that you have an alternative? So part of growth and part of managing growth is, I think, the city taking this idea of healthy communities to the next level and actually strategically designing and going back and redesigning some current neighborhoods and build that vision of healthy communities, which kind of goes back to Alki. You know, when I was a kid and lived on 61st Street, I could walk everywhere. I could walk down to the beach. I could walk down to the deli on Beach Drive there. We could walk to school. We could get on the bus and we could go to the junction. Are we developing that model throughout the city? In some areas it happened naturally. In other areas it never happened at all. So, how am I doing on my time?
Technically, you have 5 more minutes.
5 more minutes.
We're getting a lot of questions. If you
Okay.
feel like you're done talking to those
Okay.
issues.
So, well, why don't I take questions?